Actually, Trav, before we start, I owe you an apology because, Brody, Travis did the front cover of my book, Applied Creativity. So when I was putting this thing together, I needed a graphic designer. Trav put his hand up. I said, can you make this look sexy? And he made it look sexy. But in the end credits, where I'm crediting, like, thanks, mom and dad, thanks, thanks, everyone. You're already laughing because Travis's surname is Hinkle. And whatever program I'm using it must have auto-corrected it to Winkle. So he's credited in the book, the OG version that I signed. So I'm profoundly sorry.
That's okay. Stage name.
Stage name. Did you not just throw it at the wall and say, fuck this guy, fuck the work I put in? Who does he think he is?
This is a limited edition first run. There will never be another.
I like it. Like misprints always retail for more.
Exactly.
Brilliant. All right. On that note, Brody.
Who is this guy? I can't find him.
Amazing. Roll those credits. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA. Two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I'm your host, Christopher Sellers.
And from Portland, Oregon, I'm Brody Ipox.
And we're your professional misfits. We'll be riff on the B-sides of professional life. And all the way down in Memphis, near Mississippi, Travis, my man, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, guys.
Awesome. So, Trav, I've got you down as like a marketer by day, digital wizard and storyteller by night. I'm going to come back to get some more on that. I'll just give the Misfits a brief on, we're here at episode 19. It's only this and the recap to go of season 20, and then we're out. We're looking at season 3. But season 2 has all been about, relationships. So professional relationships, personal relationships, familial. And so this tail end of the series is all the little things we didn't get to cover. And in this episode specifically, we decided to explore relationships with faith, because that can be a really personal, intimate journey for a lot of people. Last week we were talking about, what's a misfit moral code? Like, is that intrinsic to religion, or can we find our own? We commented that Brody's probably more on the spiritual side. I'm practically agnostic. And so when it came to a relationship with faith, you're one of the first people I thought of, because you helped me out on the book, but super nice guy as well, and been all over LinkedIn. So give us a little bit of background on you, how we met, sort of our relationship, whether we're friends and whether this is all going to work out. And where you're at now, and what you're doing now, because you gave us the really cool story just before we came online.
Yeah, so I'll start at the beginning, and I'll try to move quickly. So pretty much been raised in church my whole life. And maybe unlike some stories, maybe like many stories of people that were raised in church, as I got to my 20s, started to question things. Okay, well, this is my parents' faith, but is it mine? What does it mean to make it my own? You start to question things you were taught, whether it's from the Bible or was it from a certain part of religion, because obviously different religions have different takes on what the Bible says. And that, not to mention outside of Christianity to other faiths. There's so many interpretations, so many different ways to look at things. So I went down that path of questioning things, and came to my own decisions through some hard times, through just a lot of searching, through a lot of soul searching, really. And so came to the realization that, this is what I believe. And I can believe it for myself, not just because I was raised in it.
Mm.
And so that just made it that much more real to me. That now I know this grounds me. Everything else I do in my life, it moves outward from this. So my relationships at work, my relationships with my family, with my friends, my profession, everything is informed by this foundation. And so that's how it's been for the last 20 years or so.
So you're not a casual fan. You've actually put the time in.
Yeah, for sure. And
done the work.
Yep. Yep. And not to say it's always been an easy road, and life is messy, whether
Yeah.
you're someone of faith or not. You have to take what life throws your way. Um, and we all look for that thing that can kind of ground us, that can give us reassurance, that can provide us with hope. And for me, that's the belief that God does love us, that despite everything that's going on in this world, he is a God of love, and that Jesus is his son, that he died for us, that we're imperfect and that we mess up, we make mistakes, but he paid for those mistakes. And if we believe and trust in that, then we can live a true full life. And so
Nice.
that's how I live.
That's
I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but there's grace that covers that.
lovely summary. Perfect summary. Thank you very much, and a great place to start. B, you've got to follow that.
No, I don't, because I actually wanted to ask Travis. Well, I wanted to ask Travis a question because there's a moment in what you were saying. You said, you had to make your belief your own. And I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people struggle with that without even realizing that that's the struggle that they're in. Was there a particular moment? Was there an aha kind of thing, or was it accumulative, or how did that sit with you?
It was really, I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are, but within Christianity, there's basically, if you get to kind of contemporary American, even beyond American, but you have kind of a Calvinistic point of view of the world, which is a bit more deterministic. Everything's kind of set in its place. There's not a lot of free will involved. It's what is going to be is going to be. And then there's the other side of that, which is there is free will. We can make these choices, whether we believe in God or we can, choose not to believe in him at all or be somewhere in the middle. And so it was kind of between those two things. As I was hearing more from the deterministic side, I was like, that just doesn't square up. I mean, if that is true, how can God be loving? And so that kind of set me on that journey of, if God knows who's going to be saved, who's going to heaven, if he knows that ahead of time, yet he makes this offer available to everybody, knowing that, nope, sorry, you're out of luck, only you get it.
Yeah.
How is he truly loving? And so just to reconcile that, what I believe is that we do have free will, that the offer is available to everybody, but God, being outside of time, outside of everything else, can see from past to present to future. And he knows the decisions that we each are going to make. So we have that free will to make that choice. And he makes the offer available to everybody, but he knows who's going to jump on board and who's not.
And realizing that for you was kind of, that set you in your faith. Okay, now I have a structure of it. Now I have an ideal of it. It's not something that I'm being passed down with, and I've just got to digest. This is what it is for me. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, Brody, where are you at then? Say with a relationship with something, someone, many things. How does it sit for you? Like,
yeah, you and I have talked about this off camera. Yeah, so I was raised traditionally Christian. A lot of the same things that Travis was talking about. And I felt like for me, maybe it was a little bit earlier that I kind of disconnected. It was probably like 12, 13. I was like, yeah, this is weird. I don't necessarily agree with the way these guys are presenting this. And what was funnier yet, as I learned more about other religions, I was like, they're kind of all saying the same shit. You know what I mean? Like, if you really actually look at it, a lot of the stories run similar moral paths. A lot of the things that are discussed and highlighted, or characters of significance, like, there's a lot of similarities through each of them. And that makes me wonder where it's like, is it just a universal language and every culture's kind of got to put their context to it, right? And that's what made sense to me. So I do believe in something higher. I do believe in something greater than myself. I don't think anybody has the answer. I would love if someone did, and if I felt strong in that, but that's where I'm at. So a lot of people would label me as agnostic or new age kind of Christian, and it's just, I'm not. I don't kind of subscribe to either of those, because it's not that I'm nitpicking and pulling the best pieces that serve me. I'm trying to pull all the pieces that make the most sense into me being the best version of myself as a human being in this existence, right? Because I imagine that's what my higher power would want from me. How do I ultimately serve and be of service in the highest way possible? And again, I think there's a lot of different pieces from a lot of different places that make a world of sense when you put them together. So that's kind of what it is for me. In a nutshell, if I had to summarize and place it on the table, that's it for me. And that might be a little confusing, but again, I think a lot of people's idea of religion is that it has to be one way or another. And if you don't subscribe to a particular doctrine, then your input or your experience or your position is invalid. And I just, again, kind of like Travis was saying, if the higher power is loving and caring and all of these things, I just don't see it rocking out that way. If you call me one thing and somebody calls me another, this person's not going to hell. You know what I mean? Like, but that's just me, So what about you? Because we have had this discussion and you told me that you're going to save it for this discussion. So like I got all deep on him and told him all these things. And then here's Chris. He's like, yeah, but you remember we're going to talk to Travis. So I'm going to hold back. I was like, cool, dude. Cool. I think you're muted, Chris.
Brilliant. We got through almost 20 episodes, and anyway, well done. Thank you.
I'm leaving this in because
brilliant. Yeah, we're professional, absolutely professional. Yeah. Look, I think I feel like a bit of a cop out because I don't have a relationship with one or many. So, and that's I don't feel that presence. Nor do I feel the need to have the presence or connection. Now, again, it's why I'd probably say I'm agnostic rather than purely atheist. Is like there might be, I don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing, and I'm okay with whomever practicing whatever moral faith or hobby or whatever it is that you want to do. Totally cool with that, so long as it's not imposed on me for any particular reason. But having said that, like I was also the kid. I remember my parents gave me shit about it for weeks because when the Jehovah's Witnesses come by to knock on the door, like I invite them in to have a chat. Like, oh, tell me about the book of, tell me about this. Okay, that's interesting, because I had a genuine curiosity of like, what do you believe and why?
That's cool.
Cool. And where do you come from? And then, so my old man, when they knock on the door, you say no, thank you. And but he'd be the type to sit there and debate, biblical theology with them. Anyway, but I think a big part of it is, and you touched on it, Trevor, which is interesting, is this sort of deterministic logic. And I suppose, especially in your youth, when you're raised in anything, in any faith, it's impressed upon children that, like, well, God is all-knowing and all-loving, and he knows everything, and he sort of like Santa Claus. He knows when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, he knows if you've been bad or good, So as a misfit 7-year-old, you're like, so if I, throw this out the window now, he's going to know, or he's going to see, and he's going to judge me, So this notion of, and it's always bugged me, even this deterministic thing of your life and your destiny is laid out, and the best you can do is walk along a path that's been dictated for you. And it's not exclusive to monotheism, even Buddhism, which I studied a bit of and partook of a lot of. The notion of karma is what is interesting is the Christian equivalent of sin, like mortal sin, that you're born into it, you're born flawed, and you can work against it, but that's the best you can do. The Buddhist notion of samsara is quite similar. So samsara translates to ocean of suffering. And so this is the world that you're born into. And you have to make do as best you can. But also the notion of karma is like, well, I've been born into this body based on the actions of generations prior to me. And the best I can do is hope for a better reincarnation once I pass. And again, I'm like, fuck that. Like, my life is mine. Thank you. Free will is a big thing for me, and something that we raised in the last episode was like, surely, like, yeah, there's an overlap of moral codes and religion and faith, but they're not mutually exclusive. It is possible for one to be moral without a specific belief system. And surely then, would those morals not be more credible because there's a human making decisions about their life and their loved ones in the world around them that isn't motivated by fear and retribution or guilt and responsibility or something like that. So Trav, with that in mind,
mm-hmm.
the journey that you went on of discovering and challenging, because that's something that we raised last time as well. If you just accept what you're given, that's very, very different to someone who takes these tools and goes out into the world and tests them on things to see whether they work or not, and then come to their own determination. What was that journey like for you? Because you seem to have gone away and then come back to the village and gone, well, actually, this works for me, and it works for me in this way.
Yeah, and I actually wouldn't say that I ever went away. I wrestled with it because I wanted to figure out what I truly believed, what was true for me. I say that true for me. I don't mean subjectively, but what I believe to be objectively. And so, I mean, it went beyond the determinism and the free will aspects of it. I mean, it went into looking at, all the theory of creation, there's a bunch of really smart guys out there who study this stuff and, make arguments for and against and debate each other about how the universe is created. The fact that we live, in the Goldilocks zone, that Earth supports life and all these different things, intelligent creation, and then those theories. And so just going through all of that, comparing that, and at the time I'm reading all this stuff, I'm also looking at Richard Dawkins and, the atheists of the day that were putting out all the books and everything.
Hitchens,
I'm looking at their arguments.
Yeah,
Hitchens, yeah. And so I'm comparing and contrasting. Okay, well, what do these guys say that believe God created, and what do these guys say that don't believe in God at all? And just weighing them against each other. And I mean, that's all each of us individually can do. We can take the evidence that we have before us and we make a decision. And that's what you said, Chris, is if it's imposed on you, no, I don't want anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're presented with
human
evidence,
nature too.
Yeah, misfits, rebellion. I mean, come on. The second somebody tells you
misfit nature, yeah.
Yes, the second somebody tells you this is what you have to do, and I'm going to hold the screws to you until you do it, that just makes you push back. There's no way.
For many.
For many, yeah. You got the few that will follow the rules to a T. Okay, yes, I will make you happy. I will, whatever pleases you. But most of us, human nature, if it gets too much pressure on us, then we're just going to push back, and we're going to go the opposite way of that. Yeah, I think there's that individual choice that we have to make.
Is it? I'm curious, obviously, and I said this just off camera for all the misfits at home, and because both these guys are in the States, and I'm aware that religion, especially Christianity and Catholicism, has, I don't know, seems to have an air of should not be challenged, will not be challenged. America is a Christian nation, God willing, God bless, and all of that. When, from what I understand historically, it wasn't founded under those principles. It was no, everyone can worship what they want, but it's evolved to a point now where religion is a sacred cow that one literally will not touch for a bunch of reasons. And so I didn't want my curiosity as an Australian. We have a different relationship, I guess, with faiths, multiple. We're also an island, well, technically an island nation, but we don't have a national religion. Like our politicians don't end every speech with "God bless Australia." It would be fucking strange if they did. But so I'm hoping that my curiosity. No, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, well done. But it's the point is we like to discuss the ideas on the table and just not hope that my curiosity and inquiry isn't taken as as offense or whatever, especially for the misfits at home, because they might not understand why is an Australian poking holes at your fabric of existence, basically. But I'm interested that okay, answer me that. Is it such a precious thing in the States? Like, is religion and faith the most precious thing in American culture, or is that just the way it's construed in mass media for the rest of the world?
I think it depends on where you are, probably. I mean, where I am,
okay,
church on every corner. But
right.
You're in Portland, Brody?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, out there, it's maybe not the same, but probably much more similar to Australia in that it's very secularized.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's not wrong.
If you're building a church in Portland, Oregon, in Seattle, Washington, you're going against the grain.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. 1000%. Yeah, it's interesting that you raised that question, Chris, because in my perspective, it's a bit of both, right? Like I've kind of been raised in and around a city where it's like you've got a lot of people that are under that exact sentiment. Don't tell me what the fuck to believe. I'm gonna do it for myself, and they go and they live that way. But like I said, I was raised with a Christian family, so I also saw the flip side of it too, where a lot of, I'd say, my closer family would be hurt by things that weren't Christian like. You know what I mean? And you
Right.
could tell and feel that kind of that shift in perspective between the two types of people, and it's like you guys are both the same. You guys are both the same. So, I mean, yes and no. I think it's construed that way because, in general, I'm going to be honest, compared to the rest of the world and the conversations you and I had with people of, French origin, it's you guys tend to be much more open to opposition than Americans tend to be, and whether that's religion or politics or education, whatever it would be, that's just kind of that standard. It's like I don't really want to be challenged, and I live in a land where you can't challenge me because I can live by whatever rules and
if you don't like
I
it,
want.
get out. You're the greatest nation in the world.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, yes and
That's
no.
right. The American brand freedom is like premium freedom, and no one else has democracy or freedom. Just America.
Right.
So here's a question for all three of us, back to faith, because faith, we could almost, at least for the three of us, we could sum up faith as sort of an understanding of the world around us, of the rules of how we should behave within it, and how our friends and loved ones in society will interact with us, right? Has there been occasions for all three of us where our fundamental understanding of the universe has shifted to contravene what we actually thought were the rules? Brody, because you're the co-host, I'm going to push you under this bus first.
Yeah, I mean, definitely more than once, and that's why I kind of address myself as a little bit on the agnostic side, because
Give us an example.
Okay, so I mean, for instance, again, cycle back to when I was 12, 13 years old, there was things that I was being told within the church about, again, people who wouldn't be saved, and kind of the predetermination of those things, and repentance was a really big thing too for me, where it's like I started reading the Bible at 12, 13, and I was like, yeah, well, a lot of these guys, in the Old Testament, they lied their way through doing things for the Lord, and they did things that weren't exactly holy, and they burned cities, and there was stuff in there, and I was like, this just what?
Mm.
So I tell a lie to my parents, and I'm at risk of going to hell. And these guys told a lie in the name of the Lord, and they're living till they're 900 years old and have descendants as many as the stars. So so it was moments like that where I caught it. But what was cool was my dad, essentially, from what I know, was raised Catholic, and then same thing, kind of bridged out in Christianity, was agnostic for a while, Buddhism, Hinduism, like really, really, really tried to understand. And he was there to counter a lot of the questions that I had. And what it said to me was, again, in those moments, that nobody has it truly figured out to me, and I'm not saying to anybody else's idea of faith or religion. I'm just saying for me, it was like, yeah, nobody has any clue. And this is just a guessing game right now. And they're basing it off of experiences of the past and people of the past, which I can agree with. And I love the stories, and I do. But at the same time, it's, it was eye opening, because now I can evolve my interaction with my faith. I can evolve my conversation with my higher power. And, nowadays it's become more of one of kind of like humor, where I'm just like laughing. I'm like, and sitting in gratitude, and I'm like, okay, I'll get it eventually. You know what I mean? Like I'll understand when when you're ready. And, yeah, so those moments where I was able to question were the shift, right? Where it was that my universe was broken, but at the same time, it was really fucking healthy to be in a place where people allowed me to pick up pieces, right? How do you want to look at this? And what do you believe? And those kind of things. So, vague example, but that's kind of where I was at, and those moments really shaped for me where I'm at now today.
Mm. Trav?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say a shift. Maybe more. I like the word you use there, evolution, Brody. That it wasn't a 180. It wasn't fundamentally different. It was just a refining of what I believed, and for me, I think a deeper understanding and growth, and a more, I guess, just a deeper belief. Whereas, as a kid, you do what you're told. You go to church. Okay, we don't tell lies. We don't do this. We don't do that. And you say, why?
Yep.
Well, eventually, as you ask all those whys, you have to get some kind of answer. And if the answer, if it's sufficient, you believe the way that you got the answer. And so for me, I guess that's what it was. It was Hitchens and Dawkins didn't sway me. It was just, it just sealed me that much more.
Can I ask? Okay,
Yeah,
can I ask why? Because this is something I'm interested in. Because I have seen some debates with Hitchens, and obviously I'll lean more to that fence. And for those misfits at home, like, even though Hitchens is sort of, yeah, an atheist and well published and all these sorts of things, he takes the stance of, there is no certifiable proof that God exists, and I'm fine with that. And you all can have your religions and do whatever you want in your homes, but the assertion that I must prove that God, does not exist is not scientific. Like, you're asserting that he is, that he is all powerful, that he does exist. So, like, where's the actual tangible proof? So whenever you find these debates on YouTube, especially on my end at least, it's all pro Hitchens comments. Like, of course, right? And I'm like, well, I really want to hear an articulate Christian point of view of why it didn't, connect for me. I'd be fascinated.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd probably lose on that debate stage, but just for me personally, yeah, just, for me, I guess you have to get to the point where you're okay with not knowing. You're like you said, you're not gonna you're never gonna know everything. And for me, the idea that if you could truly know 100% certainty, scientifically, factually, yes, God exists. Yes, all these things are true. Then what's left of faith? You're just taking up the numbers add up. It equals this. Okay, of course, perfect. Yes, the money's in the bank. But if you can only get so close, and there's that little bit of space left, a little bit of margin, that then you just got to say, well, either I believe it or I don't.
I suppose that is
the
definition of faith, though, isn't it? It's sort of that.
Really well, really well put. Because I think a lot of the times that I've had conversations with, I have a couple friends that are atheists, and I mean truly, and nothing against them at all. Nothing. We love each other. We have our own beliefs and that kind of thing. It's just I guess I'm not comfortable sitting on the edge, looking into oblivion, assuming there's nothing. I would rather, if I do have to sit in the same position as you, looking into oblivion, choose that on the other side of it, there is something. That's just me. That's just me, and that's the way that I kind of describe faith as well. It's like, where do you choose to believe? And that's a question that I would have for you then, Chris, like where it's like you say I don't need it and I don't need the attachment or the idea of, where I'm like, how? Like how? Because again, you just for that analogy, you and I are both sitting, and the understanding, the eternity is the oblivion that we're looking at. And you believe there's nothing there, and I believe that I'm going to take a jump and land in clouds. But let's just sit with it. Again, I don't know how to sit without believing in something. I just don't, and I'm just curious how it works, because I don't think it's I don't think it has anything to do with character even. I wonder if that's a personal insecurity of my own, that I'm sitting here now talking about faith, where I'm like, fuck, am I just scared of the oblivion?
Well, it's funny because I'd even turn it around the other way, because I was sort of thinking, I was obviously thinking about this conversation before we got here, and that popped up as one of the questions that someone might ask. And I also wondered, like, maybe it's not because I've not had good or even just, I don't know, interesting experiences with organized religion, but it might also have a lot to do with trust, because like you have to trust that something out there, without any sort of demonstration except for like abstract signals, or because someone in a pulpit tells you so, or that you are loved and that you are special. And arguably, objectively, I can look back at my childhood and go, God, I've got no fucking trust in anyone around me. That one of the only brown kids in an all white coal mining town. No all powerful deity was keeping me safe or loving me unconditionally then. My family wasn't religious, so I'm not asserting that because there was a felt absence of something I don't believe. But if you ask me, like, how can you look at the world and not feel the need for something? It's like, I suppose because self-reliance has become my tool. I never, and with that is self-responsibility, but probably and I'm aware, like, probably to far for a much further extent than is probably healthy. Like, so to trust people around me to help us build things, or to trust a community, or to trust, a partner that they're going to stay and be reliable. Like those are insecurities and conditions of mine, which I was probably going to get to this a little bit later in this conversation, but there's a few things that organized religion does very, very well. And one of them is that it's organized. And sort of to what you were saying, Trav, is like every Sunday, I know I'm going to go to this place. I'm going to see my people. I'm going to be included. Like, the sermon is almost irrelevant, because we addressed last episode that, like, all religions are a social moral code. So it can be anything, but it's like the community gets together to celebrate and to be communal, right? And in the modern age where everyone's time poor, or we say we don't have time, that's something that religion does very, very, very well, that is needed in humanity, that the secular community has yet to address. You know, for instance,
Yeah.
so if we Trav, I talked last week a little bit about one of my favorite books is Religion for Atheists by Alain de Botton. And he basically makes the argument of, why can't we, borrow a little bit from Christianity? Because confessions are a very healthy habit, like emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, all those sort of things. That's something unique that you guys have that could be mass employed for everyone. You know what I mean? And he also likes a Buddhist tea ceremony, because it's about, taking the time and patience to brew something and to enjoy it without distraction. And there's a lot of religion has these rituals that, the meaning of which is almost arbitrary, but it is the ritual of going through it. And surely seeing your community on a Sunday, and being included in that, and having your family and your children included in that, is surely a beautiful, beautiful feeling.
It is. But for me personally, and I won't can't go into details, but I've been a part of churches that have burned me, have burned my family, have burned others. There's
really
organized religion, for all the good it can do, can also be very harmful. There are plenty of people who have been hurt by the church, by people that they thought they could trust. And I think that makes it, that really brings a crisis of faith. If these people that I trusted, if this place that I thought was safe is not what I thought it was, then is God who I thought he was?
Yeah.
And so then you've got to move past just the social aspect, past the people you're around, and you've got to say, outside of all that, if it were just me on an island by myself, is there a God up there? Do I believe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad you raised it. I know it's the easiest, cheapest stick to grab to beat religion with, really, is and I get it, and I guess what infuriates the layperson more is normally the hypocrisy of, like, you can preach a moral ideal and a standard up here, and yet at the same time behave like this, and then cover it up, right? And so you want to wag the finger at all the heathens, but you can't even keep your own house in check. In fact, you'll keep it quiet and then just trying to, like, nothing to see here. And that's where everyone justifiably goes, go fuck yourself and fuck your church and fuck your God. Now, the any sort of behavior you can name it, but it's all faiths. All faiths have a percentage. All people, there is no institution that is pure. And so this gets directly to what you're saying, Travis. Like, I'm on an island. What's going to work for me? How to get me through? Okay, so here's the thing. Like, you are on an island. You're Robinson Crusoe, and there's no one else you have to deal with. So, is there a God? Because we know the world is a globe and we go around the sun. So he's not making, the sun rise and fall like we used to believe in ancient times. He's not controlling the crops. He's not controlling the weather. So with a basic understanding of scientific facts, sorry, folks, the world isn't flat.
I knew you were going to put that in there. I knew you
somewhere.
At some point.
And funnily enough, I watched a video probably 2 days ago where a guy I love it. He went to a lake up in, it could be in Canada, and it's at Lake Minna something something something, very long lake. But you could demonstrate. It doesn't matter. Way off topic, but he could demonstrate in the space of 2 minutes of a video of like you have the camera up here, and then you lower the camera. You can't see to the other side of the lake. Therefore, that's the curve. Done. Anyway, but so if we balance the scientific understanding of the world, then what's that percentage of faith and what does it fulfill? And I guess the only reason you'd keep it is if you felt that it actually made your life better. Because if, like you said before, if been burned by churches before, and there's elements of faith that, well, that obviously doesn't work for me and my family. So I'm going to have to reject that if I want to move on. So what's the benefit? And how have you distilled that for you?
For me, yeah, I mean, the benefit comes back to what I've seen in my life. And I get that it's easy to look in the rearview mirror and to say, okay, that happened because of this. That could happen because of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if I read the Bible and what the Bible says about God, and I believe that he does love me, that even though bad things can happen to me, I can look back through my life and I can see where there's decisions I wouldn't have made on my own. And he steered me into those places where I had to make a decision. The fact that I'm in Memphis right now, I never would have pointed at a map and said, yep, I'm taking my family to Memphis. But where I worked, where we were in Southern Illinois, shut down. I looked for a different job for a year. Couldn't find anything. Had to support my family. We moved down here, and I got back with the company that had shut down up there. And we've been here 10 years now. It's completely altered the trajectory of our family and where we are, where my kids go to school, where they've been born and raised. The consequences of those decisions that, like I said, I wouldn't have made on my own. And I can see God's hand. For me, I can see that losing my job was a good thing because it led to this, because it led to that. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago, where do you see yourself in 10 years? There's no way I could have ever predicted where I'd be working, what I'd be doing, my kids and the whole situation. But here it is. And all these little disasters that have been navigated, avoided along the way. Not that it's all been easy, but that I do believe that I guess the benefit is if you go back to the Robinson Crusoe on an island, if it's just me, nature, the elements, starvation, then whatever my existence is, however bad it might be, however lacking in material comforts it might be, if it's made better by the belief that somebody is looking out for me, that somebody ultimately loves me, and even if this life, which if you live to be 100, is a blink of an eye in the age of the earth, in the idea of eternity, that there's somebody there who will then accept me after this is over, no matter what I went through. That will all be a temporary blink of an eye, like mist in the morning that's gone. And now I have this eternity that I can look forward to. I guess that would be maybe the core thing if there were no other circumstances around it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Listening to you talk, Travis, it made me think a little bit deeper. It realistically, like the stories of the martyrs, right? Like you wonder how those guys took the stones, took the arrows, took the beatings, took the words, took the exiles, and still held faith, right? Like, and for me, where it's like, again, somebody that tries to ground a lot of things in logic, that's an irrational thing. That's irrational.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which way you put it.
Right. Why would you do that? We can't even wait an extra 5 minutes in the line at Starbucks. Come on.
But it is. It's irrational. Yeah. And that's what's powerful about it to me, though, is like I would like to believe that, and it again, on the island, if someone rolls up on a boat and they've got a gun pointed to me and they say, you forsake God for the rest of your life and you can come home.
Yeah.
I would stay on the island. I would
Would
stay
you, though?
on the island. I would.
Would you?
I do.
Would you not just fib, get in the boat, get back and go, by the way, JC, really sorry, but you know how it is.
That's what I mean, the story of the martyrs. So like that innate fucking belief that, okay, he has a reason for this, and if this is a test and this is something that I'm going to face, how many opportunities am I going to get to succeed? You know, so again, like you're saying, I could jump in that boat. Hey, please forgive me. That sucked. I didn't want to die. I wouldn't feel fulfilled. And that's the irrational piece of that faith, where it's like, I'm not sure what actually anchors me to that. But again, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd get in the boat.
So hearing the two of you talk about it, and yeah, part of me goes, it's unreasonable. I was like, bro, we're all creatives. We're all sitting here, you know, like, come on, like, we barely make logical decisions at the best of times. We've got, you know, crazy self-belief in certain projects of this will be the thing because I will it to be so. It's an equivalent form of faith. It's an absolute and an equivalent form of delusion. You know, it's fuck. But it's, again, it's faith. If we define faith as, yeah, that a committed to belief, a committed belief to something, you know, whether you can prove it, point to it, whatever it happens to be, you can invest that faith in an all-powerful. You can invest it in logic and reasoning. You could invest that in karma and in just have a strong sense of justice. I always, you know, it's one of the things that riles me. And anyway, and getting back to, I think your first question, B, is like, if you two have faith in something outside of yourselves, and arguably I don't have patience for anything. Because but the universe, Christian timing, no, go fuck yourself. People are slow and lazy. Do you know what I could have done by now? But I guess the faith that I have, it's going to sound so baller. The faith that I have is in me, but purely me. Like, I'm responsible. I know it makes me sound incredibly arrogant, like I am Atlas holding up the world, but outside of myself, I have nothing really to demonstrate that something I don't know, something outside of myself has caused this. Not anything positive, anyway. You know, we can all point to tragedies. It's interesting, like, we can all point to tragedies and go, this happened, and this happened. And some of us might frame it as, you know, well, God wanted to put me through this test, or karma will come back and bite this person. Maybe I'm a bit more pragmatic and go, no, they fucked up, and I had to wear the consequences, and that really sucks. And there might be no justice in that, and you're going to have to live with that. And that's a bit more of a bitter pill to swallow, I think, than there's divine reasoning. You know, because you sort of have to accept at times that the universe is chaos.
Well, what I was going to say to you is, like, thinking what you're saying now, and back to the analogy of us sitting on that ledge, it's got to take some fucking stones. Like, like I said, it makes me wonder if my moral rigidness, if the things that I view as right, wrong, if that was stripped away from me, would I be that person? Like, if you put Brody, no memories, no nothing, into society, and there was never another mention of God, would I still follow the conscript of, I want to be the best version of myself?
But don't you? Possible? Yeah, great. So isn't that the point of the episode? Isn't that a great thing? Like, rather than you sitting here going, oh, I know, or like, no, Chris, you don't believe, or whatever, or just dismissing me, or you know, criticizing Trav for, like, but how could you go back to that? You know, you challenge, and like, how could you? You know, you've been burned by the church, so of course they're all like that. Like, surely this discussion, and this is why we wanted to have this discussion, and especially for you misfits at home, is like, ask yourselves these questions. You know, because I'd say between the three of us, none of our opinions or views or curiosity about the world has come easy.
No. Right.
No, I mean, and yeah, like Trav, I know a little bit about, because when we met in LinkedIn, you were kind of in that hustle phase of other things, and so there's got to be times, like you said, had to move your family, lost your job, this and that, and you got to provide for your kids. There'd have to be times when you're like, why would a loving God put me through this, put my wife through this by proxy, and put my kids at risk? Like, why would he do that?
I don't think, granted, I've never been through anything I would necessarily call a tragedy, but I don't think that I've ever been through anything that hasn't made me grow in a positive way.
Good for you.
So rather than, why did we have to endure this? At the time, going through it, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Man, this sucks. I mean, come on, isn't there something else? There's got to be some better way. The hustle, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying. I don't think that we are, and I guess that's back to what we said at the beginning, the deterministic side. We are not removed from agency. There is plenty of life that is solely determined by the decisions we make and what we do. And so, yeah, I just don't think in all the difficult things, all the things that if I said, man, do I want a comfortable, easy life? Then take all these things out. Okay, I'd have a comfortable, easy life, but I don't think I would have grown. And so it's like a refining process, I think. That difficulty is used to shape you, to make you into, in my case, and what I believe, that if we're supposed to be like Jesus, if we're supposed to, obviously we'll never attain perfection, we'll never live a perfect life. But if that's the goal, if that's the ideal, then what is it going to take to make us like that? How are we going to have patience if our patience isn't tested? And so I have 4 kids. Brody, I know you got 4, one on the way.
Yep.
So
I got another one coming.
Whoa! Someone's done his homework. All right. Yeah.
Hey, I caught up on the last few episodes.
What the fuck am I getting myself into? Yeah.
No. All good. I wanted to see where the path had been going. Know where I was jumping on the ship. But yeah, it's every day. There's plenty of ways that your patience is tested, that your resolve is tested, that your faith is tested. As simple as sitting down in the chair that you're sitting in right now. You had faith that chair wasn't going to break and you weren't going to hit the ground. There's always a modicum of faith, and it's how much do you have and what do you put your faith in.
What I love serendipitously is that you've arrived where we arrived at last episode. Because Brody asked me, do you think there's ever a point where we stop like finding our own rules and laws to life? We stop questioning or pursuing this thing. And I think I made the case that I think it's a mindset thing. For as long as you remain open, you'll be curious and grow and this sort of thing. And we touched on this idea of moral codes, faiths, these sort of things. They are ideals. And that they're ideals to aspire to. So if you're the type of person, if you're the type of misfit that wants to grow, that has a pursuit of excellence within them, whatever it happens to be, like whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whether it's being a good parent, whether it's, artistically, whatever. But if you have a pursuit of excellence, then you're going to pursue, chase, craft yourself after these ideals. And faith is an excellent tool for that, and an excellent set of guidelines. Is that a fair summary, Trev?
I think so. I mean, if you want to, so faith as a noun, belief in God, belief in a higher power. Faith as a verb, follow after this, become this.
Yeah, aspire
that's
to be.
Faith lived out. Aspire to be, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I wanted to say too. It's like one of the biggest things for me that I think a lot of people misconstrue about the organized religion is that you said it so well. It doesn't deter agency. Like you are still responsible for you. Just because you found the church, just because you found faith, does not mean you are no longer responsible for that. So doing the work and becoming the best. And then, Chris, I just want to touch on this real quick. You actually did say this, I think, last episode. You start to age when your mindset becomes fixed, and that hit me like a ton of bricks for this exact thing. As soon as you watch someone become concrete in it, it is almost like you can physically watch them age. And one of my biggest personal things with my faith is that I think that my high power wants me to always live like a child and not in of or out of responsibility, but in the essence of life, And again, that's you're learning in the most fundamental sense. You are learning always, right? And the second I lose that, it's the second that I think step away from what I view as my faith and my journey. And it was just interesting to watch you bring it into this episode too, to where it's like, as soon as you stop doing the work, then what is the point? What realistically it just ends. That's your moniker. It's like, I'm gonna do it and it's over.
You just have to show up on Sunday, get your free red wine and crackers, wear your crucifix, and then just cruise. Like, got my crucifix, I'm set. I'm set. I'm safe for the next 60 years. So I'm out. On that note, that's a decent place to wrap things up. Trav, thanks so much for being here. Good to see you again. It's been. Tell all the misfits at home what you're doing now, because we haven't seen you on LinkedIn for months, and I think this is a baller story.
Well, I mean, LinkedIn just sucks so much time. Anybody who gets serious about it knows that.
It sucks so much. You are correct.
Yes. And it takes a lot of time. Yes.
It's a lot of time.
If I'm truly honest, I didn't say this to you earlier, Chris, but yes, I'm not going to name names, but just the whole LinkedIn aesthetic, oh, man, it's so tiring.
Bruh.
So tiring.
Anyone who's listening, even if you've come from LinkedIn, I'm sure you know. And so we all know we wouldn't be there if we didn't have to be, and it also just happens to be our demographic, and services to be coming soon, but we get it. It is a tool to be used. It is not a lifestyle, and a lot of people think it's a fucking lifestyle. Jesus Christ. Anyway,
it is.
This is your story. We haven't seen you in a couple of months, so what's the dealio?
So I'm trying not to do a million things. I'm focused on my day job. I'm being a good marketer. I'm working for my company. And then, all these different things I want to do, I realized they were all stepping stones. I'm just trying to get more freedom and more financial independence, whatever, so that I could ultimately do this thing I wanted to do. But all those things we're doing was just procrastinating the thing I wanted to do, which is write fiction. And so I'm working my day job, and then an hour or two a day, I focus on writing stories.
I love it. It's Misfits
novels,
for the win.
Screenplays, whatever.
Good. Do you have any form or function, or where do you think they want to go at the moment? You're just exploring format.
I'm focused more on screenplays right now, just because they're a little quicker than the 300-400 page novel.
Interesting. That's interesting. You think so? As I say, screenwriter.
Quicker. Well, I say quicker in quotes. I mean, yet to finish one.
Yeah, there you go.
But the idea of the piece of paper equals a minute of screen time, 120 sheets, a 2-hour movie, versus a tome where I have to describe every detail. 400-page
novel. I hear you. And then the punishing lesson I learned when I submitted to the BBC, like I had like one full film script and then a couple of television scripts, which are all about 30-40 pages long as well. And they just go, "Where's your one sheet?" And like, what? And I've never heard of it before. And like, we don't need any of this. The thing that you've worked, 18 months on, we need a one sheet that says these things. I'm like, fuck my life.
We want to say yes to this before we get that.
We're not going to even read it. But then figured out, well, if I can write, 500 pages, then I can write a one sheet. And then if all you need to get in the door is a one sheet, then I'll write you 10 one sheets. And then, then we're cooking.
Which idea do you like? Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you get shit done, by learning the hard way. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for candidly sharing with us. Again, like I know this can be a sensitive topic for some people, and I know I reached out to the right guy because I know you would go there, and I really appreciate it. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If people want to get a hold of you, Trav, for other things while you're not writing fiction, where's the best place they can do that?
Probably the easiest way still be on LinkedIn. Just if we're already connected, send me a message. I still check them. I'm on there for work. I just don't post myself
it's
anymore.
Travis Hinkle with an H, not
yes.
or find me or find Brody, and we're all connected, so it'll definitely be in the mix.
Yeah.
Thanks again. All right, so this is episode 19. Brody, episode 20. Do you know what's coming up for episode 20?
Yes, I do. It's going to be the season recap and finale.
Good for you. No one has to drink today. Yeah. So that's it, Misfits. Travis is our last guest for the season. We get into episode 20 where we recap everything that's going on, everything that's happening now, everything that will be coming. No spoilers. But Brody happens to be wearing a t-shirt that looks very familiar. So stay tuned for episode 20. So in the meantime, you can find us on all the socials, on the TikToks, on the Instagram. Of course, we've mentioned LinkedIn. If you want to support us, you can find us on Patreon, Professional Misfits. I need coffee and Brody needs glasses. In the meantime, I've been Chris.
I've been Brody.
He's been Travis. And we'll see you on the last episode of the season, Misfits. You stay classy.